He's Clay Travis. OutKickTheCoverage.com is his website. Also works for 104.5 The Zone in Nashville. A reaction to Johnny Manziel's 30-minute suspension was what, Clay?
Just glad, Dan, that he can continue to go out on Friday night before the game and not have to worry too much about getting up early. I think, I wrote about this the day before the compromise, what I'll call it, kind of came down, and there were three options. Three people in really difficult situations. The NCAA has no political capital anymore. Johnny Manziel and his family lawyered up. They were ready to go to the wall on this, and A&M didn't want to have to kind of hang out and wait all season long to see if another shoe was going to drop on this story. So to me, they were all kind of painted into a corner. Nobody had a good option. This is in some way, and I'm putting it in quotation marks, a face-saving move for everybody because it eliminates all the risks without really having any impact at all. This is like you get this kind of a penalty for violating a curfew, Dan, and with the amount of attention that was paid to this autograph situation, it's about as insignificant of a penalty as you could possibly imagine.
The reaction, though, of what it's going to mean for other star players, with Jadeveon Clowney or Braxton Miller or Brett Hundley or wherever you want to go around the country, A.J. McCarron, it feels like you can still get away with this. And all you need to do is your excuse is, I didn't get the money. Somebody, maybe somebody else did. I did not. You just need to have a bag man, and these kids can cash in on their likeness.
Oh, I think you're 100% right. I think the real lesson here for big-time college football and basketball athletes is get paid in cash. And you can do pretty much anything because the NCAA is going to have a really difficult time proving that you got cash. This is the lesson of the big story here. I think you also touched on something else, though. I think the NCAA looked at this, went online, kind of traced down all of these different autographs that were available out there, and said, this is bigger than Johnny Manziel. What if Jadeveon Clowney has got autographs out there? Because you look at some of this authenticated stuff, and there was a lot of similarity between Johnny Manziel and other people. So I think this is a little bit bigger than just Manziel. I think the NCAA was like, this is not really something we want to be going into, having to investigate every single one of these instances. If they gave a big penalty, people would be incentivized to turn other guys in. If you're going to miss a half, big deal.
Let's look at the games, though, starting tonight. South Carolina, North Carolina, USC, and two quarterbacks against Hawaii. Best game of the weekend, aside from Georgia-Clemson, is what?
I think it's probably LSU-TCU, personally. The way that this Les Miles and Gary Patterson debate, feud, whatever you want to call it. It's like a shadow war. It's like when two parents don't like each other and they're trying to pretend that they do. All of these quotes, if you go back and dive into those, it's definitely a Cold War going on there. It's also going to be a great game. So that's my second favorite game of the weekend. I think there's so many great games. The other one that obviously Georgia-Clemson, but to me Boise State-Washington is a really big game. It's kind of a little bit under the radar. There's a lot of pressure on Washington to try to finally prove Sarkisian up there that he can be a big time winner in the Pac-12, and then also look at Boise State. Everybody's saying that Louisville is the new Boise State. Looking at their schedule, if Louisville can pull off, if Boise State can pull off the upset there, and they're 3-point underdogs, then the only game that Boise State's going to be an underdog on all year is at Fresno State, and we're talking about potentially Boise making another run to 12-0 as well.
Sneaky team that you like this year?
There are several. I think Baylor, for me, they're not top 25. You look at their schedule, they should start off, I believe, 7-0, and then they've got a really tough Final Five. But the Big 12 is so wide open that there's somebody who could make a decent run, I think, out of the Big 12. And to me, I look at Baylor, they're unranked. Miami. I think Miami in the ACC is another school. Look, everybody's talking about Florida State and Clemson, and I think they're both good. But Miami is still kind of under the radar, I believe, and I think they could make a strong move. And then they're ranked, but they're not really getting a lot of attention nationally as a potential BCS contender. And people may laugh, but I think Nebraska, they should start 8-0. They don't play Ohio State. They could have that slingshot game in the Big Ten. I'm not saying Nebraska is great, but a lot of being good is how everything breaks for you schedule-wise. And I think there's a very good chance that Nebraska is 8-0 when they go on the road to play at Michigan.
It's Clay Travis, OutKickTheCoverage.com, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. How does Alabama not win the national title again?
Yeah, we're actually talking about that on the Fox College Football Show this afternoon, so I've been thinking about it. I got three good signs. One, Johnny Manziel. He comes out and he plays unbelievably, and A&M beats Alabama on September 14th. Keep in mind, that's a head-to-head game. It actually counts for a game and a half. I think it's unlikely if A&M beats Alabama that they lose more than one other SEC game. Therefore, Alabama wouldn't win the SEC West. Now, some people are going to sit out there and say, yes, Clay, but they didn't win the SEC West, and they still beat LSU in the BCS title game a couple of years ago. Yes, that could happen, but I think Johnny Manziel gets hot. 2, A.J. McCarron. If he gets hurt, nobody's talking about this, but the gap between A.J. McCarron and Blake Sims, his backup at Alabama, is substantial. I know the Tide's schedule isn't incredibly difficult, but I don't think there's any way they can win the SEC West with Blake Sims starting. I think they probably lose 2, maybe 3 games if A.J. McCarron got hurt. And I think 3, you look at it, the SEC title game. Look, they came within 5 yards of losing to Georgia last year. They're probably going to play Georgia, South Carolina, or on the outside, if Jeff Driscoll's very good at quarterback for Florida, they're going to play them in the SEC title game. That's basically, a 50-50 type proposition. They could very easily lose that game, so I would go with any of those 3 reasons.
What's it say about USC that you can't decide on your 2 quarterbacks?
Says Lane Kiffin's in big trouble. Because usually in these situations, if you're on a hot seat type coach, you usually see a head coach just commit himself to a quarterback and say, you're my guy.
But isn't this like Rex Ryan with the Jets?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt at all. I mean, I think what it really says is, just like Rex Ryan, when you can't commit yourself, it's not usually a sign that you have 2 guys who are playing great. It's usually a sign that you have several guys who are completely and totally mediocre, and you hope that your defense is really, really strong to cancel out the fact that you don't have a signal caller that you can ride or die with.
Good to visit with you as always, Clay. Keep stirring it up.
I appreciate it, Dan, and it's like Christmas morning for college football fans. I can't wait. It's finally here.
Clay Travis, OutKickTheCoverage.com, also 104.5 The Zone in Nashville.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.